Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity, a show about weirdos. With your hosts, John Fahey, Aaron Peter, and Matt Brousseau.
Hello, folks. Welcome to Profiles in Eccentricity. It's a show about weirdos, doggone it. My name is John Boyle. I'm your host, John Francis Fahey. Joining me, as ever, is autoerotic Octavius. Aaron Joseph Pita.
That's pretty good, man.
You like that?
Autoerotic Octavius.
Hello, Peter. Power of the sun.
Around the nape of my neck.
And to your right, my left, of course, is Rick Moranis.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Star of Honey, I spunked the kids.
Star of Honey, I blew
The baby.
everybody.
You know, known to his friends as Richard. A lot of people. Yeah, Richard. We're allowed to know his friends as Richard.
Oh, I still don't know what you're saying.
Rick.
Known to his friends as Richard.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right, Rick.
Richard Moranis.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Good guy.
Yeah, nice guy.
I like him.
Good guy.
I was killing myself thinking about that porn title. Honey, I blew everybody. Everybody is such a crazy word to say.
Yeah.
You blew everybody?
No, I mean, what would you do in this
Well,
situation?
how long did that take, honey?
I'll throw the middle of it.
Gentlemen,
Yes.
handsome Matt Brousseau, hello.
Oh, hi. Yes.
Hi.
Hello. Nice,
Aaron Joseph Pita, hello.
nice to see you.
Good evening.
Boys look very good.
Thank
Man, John, you
very-
too. This little fucking stash of yours.
You like this fucking thing?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, baby.
You cop. Dude, you know what I really love is, I love, when gay dudes are doing gay stuff with mustaches.
Yeah.
That's
What do you mean, like
It must
ass
feel
to mouth
good.
or what?
Like sucking dick,
Yeah.
Fucking ass.
Yeah,
swallowing
yeah,
cum,
yeah, yeah. Cool,
all
cool,
that
cool,
stuff.
Cool. It's more of Gomorrah than Sodom.
My
yeah.
friends Joe and Jesse sent me that cool magazine Pool Party, which was not a party. It was just two guys by a pool.
Well, that could be a party if you play your cards right.
But one of the guys was like a naturally blonde man with like, blonde eyebrows, blonde mustache. And he was just chugging hog. And there's something about a mustache, man, where it looks so much funnier. Because mustaches, you're like cops, firemen, like what?
Yeah.
Like a mustache is.
Well, I guess I think it's like, even with the goatee, there's a natural hole there. But with the mustache, it's kind of like a hello, what's going on
Well,
here?
it's
Yeah.
kind of a little French tickler thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're rubbing up my,
A hungry little caterpillar you
Depends
got
on
there.
it depends on in which position you're chugging the pole.
That's
Yeah.
true.
But it must feel it's like a little
Yeah, and if the guy
Tickle.
doesn't have these huge balls that are hitting against your neck
constantly
and
weighing,
just
like cutting off
destroy- yeah,
circulation
yeah.
on your throat.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we gotta talk about that in one of the next Patreons we do because I heard a couple of more details.
Uh-oh. You told me a funny story about somebody being mistaken for a cop.
Oh, well, that's not my story. That's a famous story. That's
Oh, I thought it was Shane Gillis. It was one of your friends anyway.
No.
Oh,
We'll
that is
skip
true.
that. Just go
I
listen
did hear
to your
that one
mom's
too.
house.
So yeah.
Don't. But finish
No,
it.
that was on
Yeah.
on his podcast.
Okay. Well, don't listen to any other podcast.
No, do not do that. Now, Aaron, I'm very excited because I'm going to tell you something.
Oh, okay.
I know who you're talking about today, and I'm going to tell you I don't know fuck all about this guy except for his run-ins with the Weather Underground and the famous maxim.
Yeah.
I think that he coined.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I don't really know where this guy comes from. I don't know what he eats.
Well, you know a little bit about what he eats.
Yeah.
I know. I do
two things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do know a little bit about who he eats, but I'm very excited to get into this. And let's tell us who you're talking about.
We're gonna dive right into one Timothy Leary,
Yes.
icon of the counterculture.
Yes.
Very
Hot man.
contested. Actually, yeah, good looking guy. Solid
Oh, yeah.
guy.
Part of his life. Yeah.
And he's a very controversial figure in the counterculture.
Yes. I don't know that much about him. I know the broad strokes.
Well, good thing is that I'm going to do a profile on.
Oh, that's fantastic. Because I thought we were just going to spitball it.
Yeah.
And I know what you think spitballing is, John, and
Snowballs.
Snowballing.
Yeah.
Spitballing is also cool too.
A snowball speedball?
Oh my God.
Yeah, with this mustache.
Oh, what a mess.
Well, guys, let me tell you. Timothy Leary was born October 22nd, 1920.
Yes. He was always a lot older than I realized.
Yeah, he's an old guy.
Yeah.
in Springfield, Massachusetts.
Okay, you're close.
You know where Springfield, Massachusetts?
Yeah, it's the home of basketball, Aaron.
The home of basketball.
That's where the Basketball Hall of Fame is.
Is that right?
It's also just overall. It's been
First in hoops is
been
what the
going through-
license plates say over there.
If only. I think the license plates say going through hard times. Springfield is an interesting place.
Not far from your.
No. About a 20-minute jaunt.
Yeah.
You know, basically a third of driving through LA.
Yeah, I
3
didn't-
blocks in LA.
I didn't know there was like ugly Western Mass until that city came up one time with people from there.
Yeah, they have lovely parks, but the city itself is not doing well.
Got it.
Even the casino didn't help that much. But
You don't say.
yeah, it's weird, huh?
Okay.
Isn't the basketball hall weird building? Basketball hall. We'll save it. Well, let's table that. You know,
It's just a peach basket.
it's a big basketball.
Really?
Yeah, it's a giant, and you walk up to the top to get to the.
Yeah, it's falling
It
apart.
has its moments.
It's all deflated.
Yeah.
An only child to an Irish Catholic family.
Jesus Christ.
Mother
Poor
Abigail.
bastard. They never broke a cane. Just wasn't enough kids to hit.
Yeah, well, his father, Timothy, a.k.a. Tote Leary,
Tote.
T-O-T-E.
Tote Leary.
Yeah, he was a dentist and a drunkard.
He was not teetotal.
No, just
He
Tote.
was just tote.
Totally drunk. He was at one point a medical officer at West Point.
Oh.
But he was a real son of a bitch drunk who left the family when Timothy was about 13 or 14.
Yikes.
So he was raised by his mother and his aunt.
Abigail.
His mother Abigail, yeah, and her sister who were devout Catholics. And they really raised him. Like they kind of really, he was the focus of their attention. And so they really pushed,
Education?
education, being Catholic.
Yeah.
And so he
Lord, our Savior.
he graduated from classical high school in Springfield.
Uh-huh.
And I believe that was the same high school as another famous doctor,
Let's hear it.
Seuss.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah, Dr. Seuss has a museum in Springfield, John. Okay. Catch up.
Yeah, it's all fucked up.
Yeah.
It
Looks
is,
like
yeah.
a Lorax.
Oh, everything rhymes. It's so weird.
Fucking Lollapalooza every day in there.
That's crazy.
He was a great student. He was the editor of the school magazine. He was voted cutest boy.
Oh my god.
Before that was problematic to vote as
I
somebody.
gotta see this guy. I gotta see
Just a
this.
cutie pie.
Oh my god. Who's the cutest kid? You
You
are.
guys,
You are.
You guys already started talking about how hot he is, and I don't even fucking know what's going on. I feel all fucking left out and stupid.
Well, because every time you see him, his face is all Picasso'd up.
Oh, because I'm high on hallucinogens.
Yeah, talking in hieroglyphics. He attended the College of Holy Cross in Worcester
Yep, that's right.
from 38 to 40. Received a classical Jesuit education, which is always good. The Jesuits really know how to
Science and
mold
such.
somebody. He was required to learn Latin, Greek, and rhetoric.
What country is rhetoric?
Rhetoria.
Oh, okay, I think.
Used to be a
Following in his father's footsteps, he became a cadet at West Point.
wow.
But then he got caught sneaking out booze,
Oh,
or sneaking out
for booze.
for booze and giving some booze to some other cadets at West Point. And they asked him to resign. And he was like, no,
I will not.
I shan't. And so they gave him the silence, which is basically they just don't engage with you. They don't talk to you.
Oh, this sounds very Irish Catholic, but this is West Point.
Yeah, West Point Army.
Weird.
Yeah,
Oh, honestly, that kind of sounds really nice.
Yeah.
yeah, you know.
Nobody telling me what to do.
Yeah.
Didn't Sartre say hell is other people?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look at that.
He's walking past fucking marching cadets with his dick out, just shaking it at
Say
them.
something, motherfucker! I dare you! I double dog dare you!
I've been laid more times than God. Doing that shit.
I'm for real with this pod.
Cutest boy.
That's funny that you say that.
It's funny.
There's a lot of fucking in his story, and later, probably in the second part of this, we'll get to Jack Nicholson was running around there and stuff.
Yeah.
And at one point, I just have to say it now because you brought it up. He was there was a script going around for an adaptation of Timothy Leary's life while he was still alive, and Jack Nicholson was lined up in some way to play him, and they asked him, and he goes, "Who wouldn't want to play Tim Leary? He's been everywhere, done everything, and fucked everybody,
Oh my God.
Including me.
Yeah. Jesus.
So he endures that silent treatment for 10 months before resigning.
Wow.
Yeah, so he does like a little solitary time.
I guess it probably does get boring after a while.
Yeah.
You know?
Do you think he's just like afraid of going back to Abigail and being like, "Hey, I fucked up," or?
Yeah, he was very, very aware of disappointing his mother. They would correspond. They wrote letters. They would write every day.
Wow.
And he would talk about, I'm doing so well. I do well in this, in this structure. It's really good for me, like that kind of stuff. And then he would go and be like, this sucks, So then he transfers to Alabama and joins their ROTC program, where he got top grades and started getting interested in psychology and biology. But a year later, he was caught spending the night in the female dorms and got expelled.
Well, he's the cutest boy.
I mean, he can't help it.
What kind of year are we looking at here?
So this is like
Approximate.
40, 41.
Oh.
Yeah, 42. And so because of his expulsion, he lost his student deferment for the draft for World War
Wow.
Most dangerous fucking you'll ever do.
II. And
Yeah.
so he lost that deferment.
Fucked myself into Normandy.
He did spend, after that expulsion, he did do a little bit of time at University of Illinois, and he served in a clinic for the rehabilitation of the deaf. He had got bronchitis around this time, and he lost his hearing in one of his ears.
Oh.
So I think he had some sympathy for the totally deaf.
Yeah.
So
Just ROTC. He's like, they're not even talking to me on this here.
yeah, so
Okay.
he did basic training at Fort Eustis in 1943, and then he did some like correspondence courses and did some study at Georgetown and Ohio State University. And then as the need for officers like NCOs diminished toward the end of the war, they kind of put him into like a more potentially battle-facing unit. But he was able to just kind of serve out the rest of the war in like a psychiatric in a psychiatric hospital type of situation.
Back where everybody wanted to fuck him.
Yeah.
Cutest boy.
The cutest three boys I've ever seen.
Yeah, he worked as a psychologist in Buffalo and promoted to corporal, and then as like a staff psychometrician.
So he doesn't go overseas.
He never no
Okay.
no, but he does. He does get once the war ends, he does get Good Conduct Medal, American Defense Service Medal, American Campaign Medal, and a World War II Victory Medal, which pretty much like everyone got.
Yeah. They're
There's a
just
few
tossing
there's a few
medals,
that everybody gets.
Yeah.
It's for the big metal corporation.
Well, after you win the war, like participation trophies are okay.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, I don't think it's coming in.
Okay.
Yeah, we got some background music right now.
Here, just close that. There you go.
So, he meets this woman named Marianne Bush, like as in BUSCH.
Oh, like the beer.
Yeah.
I like
This is while he's stationed in Butler, Pennsylvania, while he's working at a hospital there. He meets Marianne Bush, and she's pretty hot. I've seen pictures of her. She's pretty hot.
Whoa.
I bet.
They married in 1945, and like I said, and so in 46 he was discharged
Sure.
and got all those medals. And so then they kind of start like this,
GI Bill.
Yeah,
kind of.
exactly. GI Bill, post-war,
White guy.
suburban, upper middle class life.
Pick a fence. So on and so forth.
Very. This is like when everyone was drinking,
Yeah.
like a lot of martini parties.
Yeah. Well, they just won the war.
Yeah,
How
a
could you
lot
not?
of martini parties. He talked about I was living this life, a long line of commuter cars to spend time at the office and then commuter car back to then just drink yourself into.
But also drinking while you're driving back and forth.
If you're lucky, yeah.
Oh, by the way, on the way here, fucking saw a Carrera.
Porsche?
Yeah, convertible. And I love vanity plates. Drunk.
I can't. No, they did not let that through.
Honest to God.
That's
Saw it
crazy.
on my way here. I was fucking astonished. It might
begging-
be the best one I've ever seen. And
Yeah, well, because you'd think that wouldn't get through.
how the fuck did that? Yeah, how did that get through? Drunk. I think they're just going, your funeral, pal.
Well, maybe someone else's too, depending on.
So, they were partiers, very social. A lot of I got the impression that there was a lot of like swinger type parties going on, like just
Yeah, they just won the war.
yeah.
My excuse for everything at this point.
I mean, we don't know. I mean, I'm sure it was a celebratory fervor.
Oh, yeah. Plus, all these guys just face certain death. Well, not him, but all these other guys, they're over there.
Let's all fuck everybody.
They're over there fucking people in Europe, fucking each other.
They moved to Berkeley for him to work on his PhD in clinical psychology, and a friend of the family was once in the kitchen with Leary's wife Marianne, and Marianne said once that I have never refused a man.
Aww.
So it seems like she was a real
Good time, gal.
good time gal.
But Jesus Christ, what a crazy statement.
Yeah.
What a fun time.
Yeah. This
so-
fucking chud comes in.
You're not a man, you're a chud.
I understand you don't refuse.
He did a lot of work he pioneered the work of personality categorization. He came up with something called the Leary Circle and some various personality tests. He wrote a book called The Interpersonal Diagnosis of Personality, which was a very, I would say, groundbreaking and lauded work for the time. He was having an affair with a woman named Mary. Mary.
That makes it easy.
He was who worked for Tim in his office, and after a night of heavy martini drinking,
You can't do a lot of those.
and that would be on October 21st of 1955, the night before his birthday, she confronted him on his infidelities, and he said, well, that's your problem.
To his wife.
Yes. He said, that's your problem to his wife. They go to bed.
And has he ever been proven wrong?
No, he was really smart.
But she also, she's saying, but she never turns down a man.
She had never turned down a man.
Oh, okay. So she
And I think,
maybe no one approached her.
yeah, he
after.
said like, well, let's just have like an open thing. And I think at this point she was kind of over that lifestyle.
Maybe trying to hold it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he wakes up on the morning of his 35th birthday on October 22nd. He wakes up to the smell of car fumes.
Oh, no.
And he goes into the garage.
No.
There's a suicide note. She
No.
ran the car in the garage and killed herself.
No.
And but not before cooking him a birthday cake that was waiting for him in the kitchen.
That is so fucked up. Dude, that is fucking, what a move.
Yeah.
Enjoy your cake,
You
sweetheart.
fucking son of a bitch. Share that with the lady in your office.
Yeah.
Who's your sweetheart now?
God.
He would go on to be with Mary,
Yeah.
Jesus
his
Christ.
mistress.
You know what? After something like that happens,
Might need some
what I
help.
like to do? A lot of acid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of acid.
And they did have two kids. They had Jack and Susan. So he's left with two kids.
How old?
Shit.
Let's see. They had the kids in
Jack and Susan. Fuck me. Jesus Christ.
in 47 and 48. 9. So
they're still quite young.
the kids are.
But they're old enough to
6
know
and 8.
mom's not here anymore.
Yeah, mom's not here anymore. She left the cake.
Oh, she left a cake.
So he married his mistress. So he's on his second marriage.
My God.
But apparently,
shit.
soon afterward, I think their landlady called the cops because he hit her, and the marriage ended. And then in 1956, he had actually reconnected with his father, who was living like as a living destitute in New York City, drunkard, broke, probably doing some gambling.
How do you find a guy like that?
Well, you just look in the phone book and people like write you a letter. You can write
I
letters.
mean, you're destitute,
Right.
though. I mean,
Well, your name might be if you live, I guess, or you track them down. You go place to place. You go, hey, was there a destitute drunk man here?
Yeah,
You go,
anyways.
there's 1,000 of them.
He died.
real cute.
Yeah.
He died.
Oh,
So his dad dies a year after his wife.
Oh God, that's sad.
And then right after that,
wait. So I'm sorry. He found his dad, but he was already dead, or he found his
they
dad
had
and then he
reconnected.
died.
They had
Then he died.
reconnected after.
While his wife was still alive.
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Fuck.
And then so he dies, and then right after that, a former faculty advisor. I forgot the guy's name, but they were pals, and maybe they even had a little gay stuff going on.
Oh, nice.
That guy was arrested while cruising a public men's bathroom.
Very cool. For what?
Cock.
I mean, is a good time illegal now?
I guess so.
Jesus Christ.
Not next to the fucking jungle gym. So Leary had like a nervous breakdown. And in this book, Robert Greenfield's Timothy Leary, a biography,
Oh, that makes sense.
there's some speculation that he was worried that, his friend would be pressured to give up other like names, because this is the 50s and being gay is like,
Communist.
yeah, it's being gay is gay.
Yeah.
So are we convinced that he is gay? I mean, obviously bi.
Yeah, it's. I think he was doing a lot of fucking. Later, there'd be a lot of like a tremendous amount of fucking.
He fucked everybody.
He had a bit of a nervous breakdown, kind of just worrying like, what the fuck is going on? Plus, he had 3 stressful events like back to back to back. In 58, he moves to Europe with his children, takes a little sabbatical.
That's probably a good move.
Yeah,
Chill things out.
And while he was in Spain, he got some mysterious illness that he got like delirious, and I think he later wrote in his book called Flashbacks, which is his quote unquote autobiography that's full of like fucking wrong dates and like
Yeah, of course it is.
he's all fucked up.
The man only sees in shapes. He doesn't.
I believe you can get that from Hyena Gallery right now.
I bet you can. Actually, you told me you can. He said that with a sudden snap, all the ropes of my social self were gone. I was a 38-year-old male animal with 2 cubs, high, completely free. So I think he had a bit of a mystical experience from the delirium.
Oh, 38, so any day now.
And so while in Europe, he meets a gentleman named David McClelland, who was the director for the Center of Personality Research at Harvard, who was also on sabbatical. And he was trying to start a PhD program in clinical psychology. And he was just like really smitten with Tim, super charming, intelligent. And by the end of their trip in Europe, he offered him a job to lecture for the 59-60 academic year. And so he accepted and he moved to Cambridge with the kids. Now, he wasn't a professor. He just took a job to be a lecturer there.
Yes.
So it's different. This is a good time to be a psychologist in the United States.
Oh, it's blowing up at this point, especially because we've talked about it before with like Skinner and after the Korean War, when soldiers were captured and said that they were joining, was it China or North Korea or Korea? I forget which.
Oh, the whole false idea of brainwashing.
Yeah. So then there was this tons of money put into studies.
And then,
this.
This also kind of dovetails in with like all the MK Ultra research
Yes,
that had
exactly.
been going on.
Yeah.
we'll get into LSD stuff later, but LSD was discovered like in the late 30s. And the MK Ultra stuff was really just a continuation. Go back and listen to the Sidney Gottlieb episode if you want to get into MK Ultra, mind control, and experimenting.
And
with
even a little bit in the
LSD.
Ted Kaczynski one too.
And the Ted Kaczynski one as well. LSD was accidentally discovered by Albert Hofmann, who was a scientist at Sandoz Laboratory in Switzerland.
A cool dude.
He's working on ergot of rye, looking for different medical uses for it. Accidentally doses himself with the 25th compound, lysergic acid diethylamide number 25. Takes a very famous bike ride, trips his fucking balls off, and you have LSD.
Thank God they didn't drive.
The Nazis were experimenting on prisoners at Dachau with LSD.
Oh, wow.
And then after the war and Operation Paperclip, the United States government started using LSD, trying to brainwash, wipe people clean, make Manchurian Cannon type of stuff. So it is a good time to be a psychologist during this post-war period. You have a lot of people coming back shell-shocked, which we now call PTSD. And it's also becoming a movement. You know, head shrinks. People are exploring how to better themselves through therapy.
Yes, and it's also in the realms of something as cynical as advertisement, and also just in straight up. We need therapy.
Yeah, we're fucked up.
Everybody's fucked up. So it is a good thing that it honestly took too long to catch on, but to the common person.
Yeah,
but you're right. It creeped into every part of society.
It did.
Yeah.
Did.
So the whole thing of all the products started becoming one color, yellow or red, because they said, oh, this activates their buying power.
Right.
and also like the subliminal messaging,
exactly,
which is another guy that we can talk about, the father of public relations, but maybe that's for another time. So the National Institute of Mental Health was founded in 1946. It was the fastest growing, one of the fastest growing divisions of the government at that point. They were just dumping money into it because they were giving psychologists grants to study things like alcoholism, the burgeoning juvenile delinquency program.
Well, it's always the kids.
Television violence.
Solved.
The dominant dominant area of that of psychology of the day was ego psychology, a therapy aiming at helping people adapt and adjust to life was very dominant in American psychoanalysis. In 1955, half of the hospital beds in the United States were occupied by patients diagnosed as mentally ill.
Fuck.
Yeah, I imagine it's pretty broad, but
yeah, and maybe that's a good thing,
right?
I would assume there were a lot of housewives that were diagnosed as such, and on the other side of that coin is probably a lot of overprescription of downers and uppers,
yes,
or lobotomies,
Absolutely.
But at least
and also just trauma finally having a moment to catch up with everyone.
Yes, everybody getting out of the fog of war.
Yeah,
and then also being jaded and unhappy with what should be the best times of their lives.
Right.
Yeah, and it turns out all the martinis aren't actually solving the problem.
The martinis are not helping.
But things like when you see things like the juvenile delinquency problem, you go like, before that, the kids like hit the rails in a car and got raped.
Yeah.
Like that the kids,
or they were off at war.
That the kids are around to get in trouble.
Yeah.
You don't realize is a big step up.
And are they even really getting in trouble?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, they're not working the mind.
All they're doing is just thinking for them, like trying.
But it's that thing at the time. It's like we're manufacturing problems,
right?
And we're manufacturing solutions to those problems, and blah blah blah. But on the whole, I think there's probably a thing where like I certainly feel this way. But when you get to safety, you're like, what
else is wrong?
I still can't be comfortable because otherwise then they'll get me.
Of course, and especially for soldiers coming back from war.
Yeah.
And then you also have a bunch of women who were called into the workforce or in the military in some fashion, who are now going back to this very unnatural state, which is staying at home and being a housewife.
Yes.
With or without kids, like
after being in the mills,
Yes.
And feeling
the fucking
pride,
and just well, I mean, not even that. Like, it's just a thing of like, okay, well, this is my job, you know, whatever. Like,
It's also being social.
it's also it is social.
But what I'm saying, what I mean by pride is like the work they're doing.
You're right. It's incredibly proud.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
But I'm saying they could still have pride in that work just as much.
Sure.
It's just that now there is also this cloud of a potentially PTSD guy coming home.
Right.
especially
and,
that.
And,
Yeah.
and
especially
we
that.
might have talked about it on a Patreon before, but if you think about like the stereotypical suburban life dynamic of a husband and wife, and then you compare it to like ancestral, like how we've evolved, you know, like the hunter-gatherer mind that we have is like the guy goes out and does the hunting or war fighting and then comes back and the woman stays, but she's with all the other women
Yes.
and children, and they have this group thing.
Yeah.
But then the suburban life doesn't change much for the guy. The guy still goes out and does the whatever he does.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the woman who's sequestered at home,
Yeah.
alone,
Yeah.
with kids, and no one there. That dynamic is lost on her, and that can drive you crazy.
Yeah. And even that the gathering isn't necessarily just staying in one place.
Absolutely.
You're still going
You're
out
still
and
doing shit. You're
things.
doing shit.
Yes. And now they're just forced to sit at home and wait for the husband to come back, and he gets all of it. They're like, "Wow, what a great job you did."
Yeah, everybody needing a castle
Yeah.
is this kind of like, you know, like thing where you go like, it doesn't really serve the human spirit.
It's the genie's wish thing. You know, you just,
Like the nuclear family is, you know, kind of when we say nuclear, we mean like just two parents and two kids in a hut. Like it's kind of a new thing. Usually, I mean, for the longest time, even in modern history, you know, the grandmother or the grandparents lived with you, or you lived very, very close to your neighbors, and you were, you know, you were much more integrated with your community. And then like, the post-war suburbs,
and some of that still
really separated.
Some of that still goes on too, where like
course,
there will be a thing where you go like, oh well, like honestly, like these kids go over here because that mom is like more attentive, and they get that sort of thing, and you know, like there's like still a lot of community there, but yeah, like as a setup, it is set up to be like less communal.
Yeah,
and
it can drive you crazy.
Yeah.
It's not the best zoo for the animal.
No, yeah, it's dissociative. Yeah.
But it's good for the guys. They get to go do whatever they want.
It's only really good for pride, if we're being honest.
It's less of a stretch for the guy to maintain that lifestyle because it's much more similar to that like ancestral lifestyle than it is for the woman.
Yeah. So I mean,
that's why there's
who set it up?
Corporations,
Yeah.
the car companies.
Yeah.
Children of the Corn, I think.
Well,
But I
not
do.
enough corn. Children of the supermarket.
So it is a good time to be in psychology, and and like I said, half of the hospital beds in the United States are occupied by patients diagnosed as mentally ill. Maybe there's some overdiagnosis there, but it does speak to a different time when we didn't sweep it under the rug as much, and there was state. And there's government funding for that. There's government,
And then we also have to think
mental
about
hospitals.
how many causes that might be poisonous.
Oh, like lead in the paint.
Yeah, like I mean, shit like that.
Lead in the
like,
everything.
Like there might be really so many causes of that, you know. But in general, I think it's kind of sensible for it to be like people just like catching up with.
All the stuff you've been putting.
Yeah, I mean, just the
Trauma
war.
the trauma
just
of
the war.
Yeah.
Like the idea of every day, like we're all bitching about like we went through 2 years of pandemic. And we're like, I don't even know what that time was. What happened? Imagine you thought you might lose.
Yeah.
And Hitler might be here.
Yeah.
Like imagine the paranoia of that. Like, what if we fucking don't make it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and everybody
like that wouldn't be.
And they're still living under. I mean, this is 55.
Yeah.
Cold War peaking.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Now it's gone to nukes.
Yes.
And it's even worse. Yeah.
Yeah. So then in 1957, Life magazine publishes an article, Seeking the Magic Mushroom. It's an article by a former banker named R. Gordon Wasson. Have you heard of this guy?
No, is that a real name?
Yes. He was a very rich guy, made his money in banking, and he went down to Mexico, and he was looking for this mythical or legendary mushroom, which would be known as the psilocybin mushroom, used in ancient Mesoamerican religious rites, known as the flesh of the gods, by the Mazatec people of Mexico. It's a huge article. He goes down there, finds it. He meets this woman. I believe her name is Maria Sabina. Trips his fucking balls off.
Good times.
It's a huge thing. And
Life magazine.
Life magazine.
Man, pretty important magazine.
57. Shit.
And everything is legal at this time. I mean, cocaine and heroin are illegal, but LSD is still legal. Mushrooms, they just fucking discovered. The white man just discovered it. His wife was really afraid of nuclear war. She was really afraid of it. Timothy decides to take a vacation. They go to Mexico.
Uh-oh.
Well, no one's nuking Mexico.
And he goes down to Mexico with a buddy of his, Russo. They go to Cuernavaca, and they meet this woman, Juana, who grows them. And she goes, "Are they safe?" He goes, "Are they safe?" And she grabs a handful and eats them in front of him.
And she's like, "You two are the best. You two are the best cacti I've ever talked to."
And so he, by a pool one day, he eats some of the mushrooms and trips his fucking tits off. He would later say that after taking those mushrooms, I quote, "learned more about my brain and its possibilities and more about psychology in the 5 hours after taking these mushrooms than in the preceding 15 years of studying and doing research."
Wow.
Well, but the thing is, he wouldn't have come to those thoughts without the 15 years. Because a guy who has studied the brain so much.
Do you want to take mushrooms right now, man?
But he had the inside knowledge of all the studies he had done.
I mean, but everybody comes to this. Everybody comes to this conclusion.
Yes, but he came to
even more.
Yes,
of course,
exactly.
Of course. You don't get one without the other, but it definitely rocked his world.
Yes.
He then read The Doors of Perception by Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley, who wrote The Doors of Perception about his experiences with mescaline.
Yes.
Aldous Huxley, author of Brave New World.
Yes, author of that famous suicide note.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Either the curtains go or I do.
No.
Oh, no, those were his possible last words.
No, that's Oscar Wilde.
Oh, you're right. What was Aldous Huxley?
Huxley was requesting on paper 100 milligrams LSD.
Micrograms, yeah. And
Micrograms.
He did get it.
Yes.
He did get it.
Yeah.
So.
Can we take a quick break right there?
Yeah.
And come right back?
Of course.
All right. Be right back, folks. And we're back.
We are.
Oh, man. And
So he's
on mushrooms.
He's tripped.
He's tripped. But
Just on mushrooms.
just on mushrooms,
Okay.
Which, I mean,
which is nice.
for me, I've had crazier trips on mushrooms, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel like everybody's different, but
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's fair.
they are mushrooms and LSD are very different trips.
Yeah.
For me personally, taking LSD was a lot less taxing.
I think that's what that's a better way of putting it.
But you know what? I probably didn't take enough.
Yeah, there you go.
You can always
There you
take more. But taking mushrooms can be really taxing.
Yes.
huh.
Especially like they come up and like the nausea involved in
Yeah.
the beginning and. But these guys took a lot of
This guy's a total pro.
So he reads The Doors to Perception, And it was this style of like, you know, it was mystical, pseudoscientific, written very well. And it suited him very well. It was this kind of, I guess you would call it shamanistic psychology that really inspired him. And as it happened, Aldous Huxley was then lecturing at MIT, just down the road from Harvard.
Quite convenient, yes.
And so Leary set up a meeting. And so they had lunch at the Harvard Faculty Club. And it was Huxley's idea that, like, you know, if we could turn on the world leaders of the world, the lion would lay with the lamb, and we might be able to, like, you know, change the world with this.
That's fucking nuts.
Which is kind of similar to, if you remember, I did that. It was very early on. I did Captain Trips, the guy who was given LSD to people like in the 40s and 50s.
Yeah.
And he was very much a pioneer in LSD therapy and kind of the set and setting thing that Tim Leary would espouse later on.
Yeah.
And he was doing that, you know, his idea, this Captain Trips, I think his name was Alfred Hubbard, I think was the guy.
Hubbard, yeah.
Hubbard, yeah. He had very much a top-down approach to changing society through LSD by giving it to, you know, luminaries and people higher up, and then kind of, you know, have a trickle-down approach to changing the world.
I think that is incredibly ambitious and somewhat noble. But, like, the thing is that, like, you know, people that aren't ready for it, I think probably trigger psychosis.
Yeah.
Can.
As even marijuana can.
Of course.
You know.
And that's why he had this very kind of like, let's be selective about who we do it to, who we give it to, and how we give it to them.
Well, yeah, I mean, the how is like, you know, people think like, oh, let's just dose everybody and watch the world come to fucking love. It's like, nah, man, that ain't gonna happen.
No.
It's gonna be probably fucking something more like a cannibalistic fucking...
Which is cool.
Yeah.
And so Leary was like, yeah, let's do that. He was a believer in that.
Yeah. Let's get Nixon
laced. Yeah, Nixon on acid. Yeah, like he would become lovable. No, he would just have crazier ideas.
Honestly, I would fucking pay millions to see.
So,
No.
so turning, you know, important people on was what was the mission. And so when he got back to Cambridge, he talked to McClellan, the guy who gave him the job, and they started the Harvard Psychedelic Project. And so he linked up with a guy who was a professor there, Richard Alpert. Richard Alpert, you may know as Ram Dass.
Yes.
Which happens later, but he was
Half computer.
no. What?
Ram Dass are both.
Terrible.
That's why I said it very quietly.
Terrible job.
It's spelled Ram Dass, which he would do because he was gay. He rammed Dass.
Now wait, real quick, can we just say, for those who may not know, the reason why they want to turn people on is because of the feelings of coming down from psychedelics and feeling that we are all one, and
yes,
and that it would stop war, and just if you're not aware of why people feel like,
yes, you get this you get this feeling of, you know, boundary dissolution with mushrooms, you know.
Well, it's kind of like when the astronauts see the Earth for the first time, right?
Yes, it's called the overview effect.
Yeah.
You know, so many astronauts, they go up and when they look back at the Earth, they go, oh my God, it's all just that. Everything that's ever happened, everything that
ego goes away, ego death, and you know.
And so with mushrooms, you again, boundary dissolution. Aside from like the pleasurable feelings you can get, the ecstatic feelings you can get, the heightened awareness and sensory feelings that you get,
the philosophical and emotional,
the insights
impact
that you can get are life changing, or they can be life changing. And you know, Terence McKenna, I think, once famously said, you know, the mushroom is a boundary dissolving entity, and it'll dissolve boundaries between you and your partner, you and your cat. It'll dissolve the boundary between you and your refrigerator.
Yeah.
You know, it really, you know, you tie in to everything and the energy field that we're all connected to. And the idea is that if enough people or the right people are turned on, you know, it can cause a change in how we operate. And so, the goal of the Harvard psilocybin project with Richard Alpert was to analyze the effects of psilocybin on human subjects. And so first they did it with prisoners. And so they always right.
Yeah.
So, but that was the first and you know, easiest place they could get it.
And perhaps the most medicinal.
Those exactly. If you could change them, imagine what you could do to other people.
Right.
Done against their will is a crime in itself.
But these were not. So they went to the chief psychologist at the prison, Concord prison. It's called the Concord Prison Experiment. And they talked to the psychologist who was in charge of psychology at the prison, who was, quote, the first black psychologist Leary had ever met. And he was a little, not skeptical, but he was a little reticent about it. And so they were like, well, why don't you take it? And so they did. He took it and was like, yup, we can do it. The psychologist.
Oh, really?
He gave, and at this point, they were getting synthetic psilocybin.
Wow. So they had already...
Yeah, they'd already synthesized psilocybin in labs.
Get the fuck out of here, really?
Yeah, by none other than Albert Hoffman of Sandoz Pharmaceuticals.
I've never heard of synthetic psilocybin.
Oh yeah, you used to, dude, up until like maybe 10 years ago, you used to be able to get synthetic psilocybin, not analogs, but prodrugs from there was a biochemical website in Canada that would send you the powder. It would be the precursor to psilocybin. So when you would eat it, when you would digest it, it would convert the psilocybin and psilocin in your body. And
Wow.
And it was like none of that weird come up, none of the stomach pain. It was just like you take it, 30 minutes later, you're starting to trip.
No way.
Incredible. Wow.
And so they were these little pink pills, and they don't taste like shit. They don't look weird.
Yeah.
So they go to the prison, and so they get with the prisoners, and Tim he gets in the room and he's sitting with the prisoners, and he takes like a half dose with them just to show, like, because a lot of the prisoners were hesitant to take it because they're like, I know what happens when, like, you know, they're giving drugs to prisoners.
I know what people do to prisoners. Yeah.
Or even I've
we know
seen
about
people
Tuskegee. We know about like, you know, we
straight up.
Yeah, and so
or I'm in here for drugs.
Yeah, and so a lot of them were worried, like, is it a truth serum to make me confess to stuff that I might or might not have done? And what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And
if you want it to be, maybe. I mean,
so he takes it to show that it's not like poison or anything. And like, I'm here to kind of like assuage their worries. But even then, like, you know, so they take it, and one of the so Tim's taking it, and he's a little uneasy. First, you're in a prison. It's not the most like conducive place to tripping. It's like 4 walls, bars.
It's not made for comfort.
Right. And so he's a little worried.
it's not Joshua Tree.
Yeah. He's a little worried. The prisoners are worried, and so the prisoner's like, what are you worried about? He goes, I'm in here on drugs with a bunch of prisoners. And they're like, well, we're afraid of you. We think you're a mad scientist. And then they all start laughing.
Oh,
and they all
That's
trip.
good. That's nice.
And so then
I killed my sister.
I fucked her. All right, I love you guys. So the goal was to test and examine recidivism.
Yes.
Right. And so after the study, you know, 10 months later, Leary reported that like the recidivism had dropped 70% or whatever. And then just like the thing was, people would later go look back at that and be like, okay, this was kind of a flawed study because, you know, Tim would also, like, after these guys would get out, he'd help them get jobs.
Yeah.
He'd help stay with them if they're out. So, like, it's not a perfect experiment that controls for all the variables.
No, it's helping out your boys that you had a crazy night with.
Right. and so it also doesn't, like, expand longer. Like, oh.
No, it doesn't mean a night on mushrooms means you turn your life around.
Right. And 10 months later, like, that's not, you know, as time goes by, the chances of recidivism go higher. So they didn't go longer than 10 months. When if it went 30 months, it kind of was it ended up kind of being
Can I volunteer?
a wash.
Can I volunteer my
Yes.
Yes. I don't think it's a one and done. But I think if, like, while you were fucking rotting in prison, if they were like, every 2 months, you can trip. Ketamine, I don't care if it's mushrooms, LSD, whatever. There is still a thing where you go back in your mind and kind of do some digging.
Well,
and you deal with regret and
it's an ongoing practice.
you can't do it just once.
Yeah, no, one and done is a lie.
Yeah.
But I think if people were like, hey, just like, I would say that would lead to more
you get
recidivism.
insights and, you know, you can see, you know, repressed memories come out. You see all the times you've been.
Yeah.
And there's lots of different ways to do it. It's not just psilocybin. There's probably some less
It's one of the only
jarring ways to get
just
there.
basic therapy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of the times you can see yourself as egoless and
part of something bigger.
part of something bigger.
And also like
not be hating on yourself,
yeah.
but not taking yourself too seriously and being like, man, you know you were being silly when you did that.
And
like,
also
that
like
sort of
people
attitude.
in prison have a like I think it's like a what's the must be I think it's something like in the American prison system, something like 40% of prisoners are clinical psychopaths. At least, like, never mind like the nonviolent drug criminals, but like people in true prisons for stuff, they have a much higher rate of psychopathy than the normal population at large.
Right.
And so that's harder to treat.
For sure.
Not sure if it's curable.
Yeah, and mushrooms might not be a good thing for them.
Right. There might be other ways to deal with that. So then they do that. Then they start doing him and Alpert start doing research with graduate students, and that was kind of the protocol was that okay, you can't do any of the tests on undergrads. You have to do it only on graduate students. They do something called the Marsh Chapel experiment, aka the Good Friday experiment, with divinity theology students at Harvard, and so they got 10 theology students, and they gave them in a chapel during a service. They gave them psilocybin, and I think the other 10 they gave a placebo of like niacin tablets or something. So the niacin it can cause like skin tingling and flushing.
But it was a placebo.
It's a placebo, but it's enough of a something to make it feel like
Make
you
you
took
think
something.
you did, yeah.
So 9 out of the 10 theology students reported they had a mystical revelation that like changed their outlook on life and divinity.
Even though 5 only got it. Is that right?
No, 10 got it, another 10 didn't. But the 9 of the 10 who did get it said it changed their
So
life.
the niacin, where did that go?
No, I think they're just regular
child
molesting creatures.
I got a boner.
Yeah.
Nice.
One of the guys like, stripped off all his clothes and ran out into the street because he was convinced that God talked to him and told him he needed to announce the coming of the Messiah. They had to run out, and I think they had to give him some Thorazine or something.
Wow.
But in one of these documentaries I watched, there was this guy, Reverend Larco, who is still a priest, and he talked about, like, for a second I freaked out. Tim ran out and got me. He pulled me inside to the chapel. We laid on the ground, and he just like he held my hand, and I can still remember like the way his hair smelled and the feel of his touch, and like it just brought me back down, and like I saw that God's love and presence is everywhere. I saw life in everything. I saw life in the pews, in the pages of the Bible. Like everything was alive, and it just further confirmed my belief in God. And he's still
of course, yeah,
to this day.
That's I'd like to table that idea for maybe a discussion after.
Sure.
Because I
could see that.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I can see it too.
Yeah.
But just the concept is interesting. I'm sure each, maybe if a plumber did it, they could see. I see plumbing in everything.
Sure. I mean, some of it will have to do with like your program.
But also that is
Plumbing is everything.
Yes, they're not wrong. No, and it's not ugly. No, it is beautiful.
The idea of seeing, the connection in everything, the energy in everything is very, very prevalent on mushrooms. And even more so on LSD.
Yes.
Like on LSD, everything is in like this constant state of bloom and turning out. Like everything is just vibrating and like you can almost see I've said it, like the refresh rate of the universe. Like you can kind of just see like, everything.
Even a little bit on mushrooms, I know lights are brighter. Things,
yes,
colors are.
Yes. And so, then it becomes like, hey, we got a good thing going. Then they start doing it like all the time.
wow.
Him and Alpert. They start doing it at their home. They may they are giving it to maybe people they shouldn't be giving it to.
Garbage guys.
Everything's garbage.
Yeah, so in 1962...
They love it.
In 1962, the project starts going off the rails. It's kind of just like, professors are getting high. Students are getting high.
The dealers are doing...
One member of the faculty was like, the Harvard psychedelic project was just a bunch of guys standing around in a narrow hallway saying, wow. They were confronted at a faculty meeting, with charges that the drugs were being administered to students without medical supervision. And an anonymous report appeared in the newspaper. And that report was put together by Andrew Weil, who would later become a doctor. He's a very, very famous guy. He's an awesome, like, what would you call it? Integrative medicine doctor. He's written tons of books on nutrition, and he's an awesome dude. But I think he saw that there was some kind of unscrupulous science going on. And this story about Harvard professors giving students psychedelic drugs was picked up in the national press. It was big news.
Yeah.
What year is this?
62.
Okay. Yeah. So that's...
And it's like the minds of tomorrow is kind of the thing, and like, are they being corrupted? And there's always an undercurrent of, is it tinged with communism? There's
everyone's one.
That subtext is always there.
Right.
Absolutely.
And, there were allegations that Alpert gave some to a student for sexual favors, which is untrue. He said he just gave it to him as a friend.
But it probably was sloppy.
Yeah, it was sloppy.
They were handing them out to anybody that asked.
Yes, and other faculty, they had so much, and it was cheap. Like, it became more than just a controlled project.
And then there's probably a whole scene, and if you're outside of it,
there was a lot of jealousy.
There's a lot of jealousy.
They were getting famous for this work they were doing, and everyone, like, people were leaving other aspects of the psychology department to just be in their program.
Yes.
Can you blame them?
So all the people in behaviorism and psychoanalysis are like, we want here, and so a lot of the faculty was jealous.
But as a person that I'm an adherent, you know what I mean? I believe, it's a good thing. But in the arena of science, you don't want there to be a cool fad
Right.
If you're
You
going,
want it to be science.
If you're
Yeah,
going
yeah.
on strict science, you go like, hey, settle the fuck down.
Yeah, suddenly it becomes some Amway shit.
Yeah, it's a thing where you go like, yeah, right. Or you're like, is this the new fucking, Bitcoin or
Yeah,
whatever? Like,
exactly, yeah.
Right, you
like-
know the guys in the fucking Freudian psychoanalysis department are like, hey man, I'm trying to talk about babies wanting to fuck their mom.
yeah,
and you're giving these people these mushrooms. What the hell are you thinking?
right.
I'm doing science over here.
Trying to fuck these monkeys' brains.
And you can see the parallels too of when you become a user and an evangelist and a dealer.
Yeah.
It's very Freud.
Oh,
Because Freud was fucking gacked to the gills on coke, giving it to his patients, taking it, saying it's a cure for everything. So it's kind of repeating itself. And nobody like Freudian psychoanalysis was also very pseudoscientifical. There's a lot of broad spectrum stuff, broad stroke stuff that you can take from it that I think is
For sure.
beneficial.
Yeah.
But it's not the state of the art anymore.
Right.
So there's that. There's that kind of parallel.
And people pumping the brakes on this, I get.
Yeah.
Because it also looks like it's like a cult. Or,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
a
yeah.
scene. Or you're going like, whoa.
Hey, this is Harvard.
Yeah. And science.
Yeah.
Like, just straight science. Like, let's chill.
Yeah.
Like,
So the story's picked up in the national press, which leads the FDA to start thinking about the regulating the use of psychedelics. Leary was forced to turn over his supply of psilocybin to the university, and the project was shut down. And Alpert was the first Harvard professor in 100 years to be fired.
Wow.
Leary was not fired, but he had basically just stopped teaching and gave like reading lists to his students and had just left town.
Was he? So he's still a lecturer, right?
He was still technically a lecturer,
Okay.
but because he wasn't doing his job that he signed up for, which is lecturing students, he just gave him a reading list and booked it.
maybe he assumed he was under silence again.
Yeah, I've been this before. So he
Can't
was.
hear you.
He had gone to California and just told his secretary to hand out a reading list.
Goodwill Hunting.
Damn.
And then he eventually met this guy, Hollingshead, Michael Hollingshead. This guy's a fucking character, and he's the first guy to give him LSD. And this was maybe a little bit before the firing, because they did start giving acid to students.
Okay, so yeah,
They
so,
did start.
not great.
He meets this guy Hollingshead. He was kind of a psychedelic adventurer as well. He was the guy who introduced William S. Burroughs, Paul Krasner, Houston Smith, Alan Watts, Roman Polanski, Allen Ginsberg, Keith Richards,
Not a
Charles
single-
Mingus, Maynard Ferguson, Paul McCartney, John Lennon, and George Harrison. He gave them all acid.
And not a single bad guy among them.
And not a government agent.
Yes, seriously, yeah, exactly. With a camera taking pictures.
Nah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Hollingshead was
Hoover's best friend.
a real character. See if I can.
That's a
Nice.
Hollingshead.
Probably worthy of some fucking discussion. I mean, that's a fucking weird character.
His name is
Yeah.
Hollingshead.
British researcher,
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
father of comedian Vanessa Hollingshead.
Of course.
He was the guy who did experiments of giving LSD to spiders to take see how their webs changed.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Oh, how did that go?
They're all fucking crazy.
Yeah,
man.
they're awesome.
Yeah.
They're all Picassos.
Yeah, pretty much. Got
He,
some wishes.
You're gonna like this one, John. He first tried LSD by licking a batch of LSD laced frosting, cake icing that he had put in a mayonnaise jar.
Ew.
Yeah.
Well, he cleaned the mayonnaise out of it.
It was just frosting.
No, I know, but all those words.
But the idea of like dipping and then tasting the LSD reminds me a lot of Mandy.
Very, very. Yeah, I immediately went there.
And so like the mayonnaise jar of acid frosting is like an artifact. It's a legend. It's a psychedelic legend.
That's fucking amazing.
He was the guy that contacted Aldous Leary about it and said,
Aldous Huxley.
Yeah. So like he kind of helped start getting those two together. Like,
okay. The thing is that people forget about, and this is like from the time of me growing up, looking back at this time and trying to figure out what's what and what's written about it. And the time now, and how those same people are talked about. Because when I was growing up, they were really like, these guys were anarchists, hell-bent on like corrupting people psychologically on a mass scale, and now they get talked about more like these were people that were like, there are answers here that will benefit all of humanity, and this is a noble cause.
Yeah.
And I will gladly go to prison forever espousing this cause.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's crazy how much like...
And it's all still legal.
The narrative has changed.
Yeah. So Alpert's fired for allegedly giving LSD, not psilocybin, to an undergraduate for sexual favors. That was it was they were just giving it to people. They were giving it to too many people. The students were getting their hands on it.
Yeah.
Let's say you give it to a graduate student and you give them a fucking whole paper of blotter acid or vials, whatever. That can get out.
Yeah.
So there's just a bunch of people doing.
Because then they're going to some fucking frat party, and then it turns into a goddamn huge mural.
You don't want the guy.
painting,
You don't want the guys studying drugs to also be doing the drugs and then handing the drugs out. Yeah, they're going to be pretty loose with that.
And then having parties with nerds that don't do them.
Yeah.
So they both decide they're better off without Harvard. Articles are showing up in Look magazine, Esquire, Saturday Evening Post, and the Times magazine. And so they're famous as the two Harvard guys who were geniuses and fired for being too far out.
Yeah, and in the 60s, that'll get you far, too.
And so they get the attention of three heirs to the Mellon fortune, Mellon, and
like Carnegie Mellon.
I believe. Well, they were heirs to the Gulf Oil fortune. It's three siblings: Peggy, Billy, and Tommy Hitchcock. And so Peggy gives them $20K. And they wanted to go, Tim and Richard wanted to go down to Mexico and start like a center down there at the Hotel Catalina, where they would have paying guests come. They could trip out, go through a program. They still did have a regimen. It wasn't just like come down and party and fuck and stuff. It still was like spiritual exploration, psychological exploration.
Yeah, let's try to help people.
So they go down there. And Mexico's like not having it. All these gringos coming down, like the beginning of the hippies, and
Fair.
they just didn't.
Yeah,
they didn't vibe with it.
If you're coming here to buy Coke, that's fine.
Right.
But if you're trying to heal trauma, get the fuck out of here.
But it was a bunch of rich whiteys coming down.
It's an act of gentrification in a way of like we're coming.
Oh, get the fuck out of here! What, are you apologizing for the nation of Mexico now?
Yes, all these white people, all these rich white people coming down here just to fuck around in our place.
What is
the history of the world?
Yes, doesn't mean it's okay.
I think it's fine. I think they're trying to heal trauma.
They really weren't doing bad stuff down there.
But what? The government of Mexico is always right? What the hell are you saying?
Yeah, John. That's exactly what I'm saying.
They should have been worried about the Romneys.
Yeah. You fucking put Mads. Okay, all right, dude. I know who you're working for.
So,
who am I working for? The government of Mexico.
Notoriously legit. Yeah, and maybe if they went down there and opened up some fucking oil refineries and car factories, you'd be happier.
Yeah, you don't see this. Okay, you fucking.
The federale
storm the beaches, you asshole
of Normandy. Yeah. So the federales are like, fuck this. Like, there's a newspaper article comes out with the headline: Harvard drug orgy blamed for decomposing body. No, but there was a body found, but like 40 miles away from the hotel, had nothing to do with them.
And they're supposed to decompose.
But yeah, if it wasn't decomposing,
That would have been an issue.
Let's see if I can.
So it was somebody that hadn't been to the.
Had nothing to do with them. They just.
They just wanted them out of there.
They wanted them out of there.
Look at it, bringing bad headlines into Mexico, John. You think the Mexican government wants that? They're trying to get some business?
I think they're bringing bad headlines out of Mexico by saying, hey, that body that washed up, that was those gringos.
They're like, you don't know what's going on in Mexico at this time.
I don't think anybody knows.
Yeah, no one knows.
No, certainly not on either side of this thing.
Of me, you and Aaron.
You know what? We're going to go into Mexico and figure this whole thing out. We're going to ask questions. You're going to be like, where does that fucking floater come from?
Hey, were you here 60 years ago?
So he
60.
The thing is that like the
No answers.
They thought they were like besmirching the name of Mexico. These two cops, Juan Blicero and Jorge Garcia, they just didn't like what they were seeing, so they fabricated this story, and they
were seeing hippie shit and they didn't like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They were seeing
just
hippie
like
shit
just like
and they didn't
every
like.
other suit.
Every other suit.
So how do you
Don't
feel about
look at
this?
me
How do you
when
feel
you
like
say
they were,
that.
How do you feel the fact that they were cops?
Oh, I'm not happy about it at all.
So they-
loves it.
I don't want them to fabricate things. I'm just saying white people showing up making a scene is not good for anybody.
They had
They always make a scene.
Doesn't mean it's okay.
they had accused Tim's group of quote marijuana orgies, hairy women, black magic, venereal disease.
Did you say hairy women?
Yeah. See, hippie shit. And profiteering.
So you made him do accents now. You happy?
So Garcia Garcia told Tim that the real reason they had to leave the formal reason they had to leave the country was that he and his group had only been granted tourist visas and they were therefore not authorized to run a business in Mexico.
Hey, low key, it's not about the floater.
So they were given
It's California, pal.
they were given 5 days to leave the country. They were given 5 days to leave the country, and Tim flew to Mexico City, and he called Dick Alpert.
Also, let's like not leave it up that not necessarily like American authorities were like telling them like, hey, get those fucking guys, like don't let them go. You know what I mean? There could have been American influence.
Oh no!
I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
To be like, hey, get those fucking guys, whatever they're doing, stop it.
yeah, I get. I mean, they're. I think they were happy that they were out of the country. So 2 days later, the New York Times ran a front page story saying that the mutilated corpse of a Mexican found in a wooded area in the Acapulco Zihuatanejo area. The police said that no connection had been established between the murder and the Leary Center, but the Mexican newspapers tied the reports on the crime to allegations that there were, quote, beatniks and, quote, queer people at the psychic drug center.
So Sam, dude, sitting with fucking Korean fan death. I'd be like, this person died. The fan was on.
Right.
It's that reporting.
It had nothing.
Well, yeah.
It had nothing to do with them, right?
No.
So, they went back. Tim went back to Cambridge, and he was like, head hanging low, was in disgrace. And then, this psychedelic enthusiast named John Pressmont invited them to visit his experimental commune on the island of Dominica, which was a mountainous Caribbean island near Martinique. And it was it was uninhabited, pretty much unspoiled, virtually unvisited, and hotter than hell. They would Frank Ferguson, who was a graduate of Wesleyan University serving as Tim's secretary, sent out an advance party to scout out the situation. And he said, quote, Dominica was straight out of Joseph Conrad. Heavy temperature, dark-skinned natives, voodoo, and the last remnants of the British Empire.
Completely uninhabited, except for the natives.
So they go down there to Dominica, and they introduced them to a small band of political radicals who wanted to emulate their hero Fidel Castro and bring about a revolution so the island could be transformed into a psychedelic paradise.
Damn.
So Tim arrives with a party of 10, including his son Jack, who was 14. They spent about a week on the island checking out beachfront hotels, only to learn that the island government had accused him of being the biggest heroin dealer in the world. Not true.
Accused Tim?
Yes.
Okay.
He gets pulled into the police station, and the cop shows a recent issue of Time magazine with Leary in it, with a lurid story about LSD. The governor made it clear that he doesn't want them on the island. Deported again. They had a night to prepare to be deported, so they spent all night sewing tabs of LSD into the kids' teddy bears.
Wow.
The next morning, they fly to the island of Anguilla, where they linked up with a friend, a former classmate from West Point of Tim's, who had purchased 2 small islands near Grenada with the stipulation from the local government that he had to build permanent structures within 2 years, and the guy was short on financing, and so he made a deal with Tim, like, if you come down here and help, we'll split the half the property, and they would be protected because it's his island. And while it was all under construction, he let them stay in an abandoned World War II era Navy beachside nightclub called the Bucket of Blood.
That sounds like a great time.
What's that like?
What kind of bands do they have?
Ghost.
Yeah.
Bucket of Blood is not an uncommon name for bars, which is sad.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
There's a few places I've heard of called the Bucket of Blood.
Yeah.
Which
So
is really desperate.
Richard Alpert shows up, and when he shows up, everyone's fucking frolicking on the beach naked and shit, and he's pissed off. He's like, you got deported from 2 countries in 2 weeks, and then you blew the 20 grand that Peggy Hitchcock gave you. And then Alpert was like, he would tell him later, like, we had to convince all these doctors. We had to throw cocktail parties. We had to convince this one doctor, Dr. White, quote, whose whole game was performing lobotomies, training doctors to do it. He did so many a week, you know? So
Oh my God.
That's
they were $50,000 in debt by then. Richard Alpert, who came from money, I sold my antiques, my Mercedes, all that shit. All my airplanes, all my income was gone. So me and Tim took a big acid trip, and we rolled around on the floor. It was like a sexual thing we were working through. There wasn't any real sex between us, not that time or ever. Tim was threatened by homosexuality. I think he had had some unpleasant episodes in his life he wanted to forget.
Gay.
So
Irish Catholic.
they so then they're expelled from like 3 fucking places. Like, they're running out of money.
Island after island.
Yeah,
Not here,
yeah,
not
it's
here, pal.
Mexico's fault.
Not here, pal. Not here, pal. They're broke. And so,
You know what? Why don't you go work for the fucking consulate? Like, Mexico's never done anything wrong.
so
I'm not saying that.
So the Hitchcocks, super rich family, right? The brothers had just bought a $4,000 acre estate in Millbrook, New York, where they had a 64-room mansion,
Jesus Christ.
cows, various other houses on the property, orchards. One of the houses had a bowling alley in it.
One of the cows in one of the houses.
It was, and so they asked if they had anyone living in it, and they said no, because it was kind of like a tax thing for them too.
Cool.
So Peggy let them move in there, and they signed a lease for $1 a year.
Tim Leary and
Richard Alpert
shut up.
signed a lease for this 64-room mansion on 4,000 acres on it with a cattle ranch and all this
Like,
stuff.
we got all this fucking wilderness around. We're not gonna do any gay shit.
Right.
I don't care how big his balls are. Like, whatever it takes. No gay shit. Whatever.
So they
$1 a year.
so they start.
Can we do that in installments?
I'm kind of low on cash.
Well, the thing is,
I got pesos.
Yeah.
if you're not careful with installments, then the balls will get big.
By spring, I should have 2 bits.
2 big balls.
So then they go back to doing, all right, we're going to set up this center here. There's a regime. He has an emphasis on set and setting. Like we'll charge people to come and we'll do the thing. And sometimes it's not psychedelic. Sometimes it's meditation, yoga, whatever, but also acid and mushrooms.
Is it ever, what we would call straight psychology?
Straight?
Okay.
So the set and setting is a very famous term. The set, it refers to the set of your mind. You should prepare for the experience by meditating on the state of your being and deciding what you hope to discover or achieve on this voyage into yourself, your intention. They also said, you should have a guide, somebody preferably who has taken LSD themselves and familiar with the stages of the experience, someone you know and trust. And setting is the physical setting around you, like not a prison. So, this beautiful estate up in, the country of New York was perfect. They wanted to create a roadmap for taking LSD and psychedelics, and they wanted to base it off the Tibetan Bardo, Book of the Dead. That would go on to become their book called The Psychedelic Experience, a manual based on the Tibetan Book of the Dead, a very seminal book in psychedelic literature. I've got a copy of that as well.
Nice.
But even then, it becomes very much like a commune, but also like anybody who is anybody, like the jet set, the rich for the East Coast, like all people were going there all the time. A lot of they had this one. They had the bowling alley house. I forget what the name was called of it, but that was a place where like part of the thing was like, all right, you go into that house for 2 weeks. You take a bunch of acid. You don't have to worry about cleaning, cooking. Like you don't leave that place for 2 weeks.
Holy shit!
Do whatever you want. If you have sex, you have sex. Like that's part of the regimen was doing the bowling alley house. One time, Richard Alpert got so high he thought he could fly. He jumped out of a window and broke his leg.
Damn.
Maybe that's where that came from.
Jeez.
That's probably where that came from, even though it's usually attributed to what I think is PCP.
Well, but
that's the jumping out of window flying was acid. That was the thing. That was like man high on acid.
Yeah.
That was
Really?
the Bill Hicks joke was like, you see all these bad stories of drugs on the news. Today, a young man on acid thought he could fly and jumped out of a window.
Right.
And Bill Hicks goes, well, then why didn't he start on the ground first? You don't see baby ducks landing at the top of the Empire State Building.
Amazing joke.
Around then, this is also around the time of Ken Kesey and the Merry Pranksters.
Electrical
acid
test.
And they have like a very different way of thinking about acid. The Merry Pranksters, right?
Yeah.
So they're on their fucking bus, tripping balls, driving around the country. They show up to Millbrook. They're fucking honking their horn, playing music, lighting off like colored smoke bombs out of it. And people are like, they're just finding a bunch of like really, peaceful hippie people just like cooking eggs. And Kesey wanted to meet Alpert or Leary, but he shows up and like Leary had like just gone to sleep after being up for like 2 days taking acid upstairs, so they didn't meet and they just left.
Yeah. I can understand that. It's a different thing. I read the electrical acid test and when I was like 15, I was like, that sounds like a wild ass scene. Real crazy.
Yeah. And then they ended up, they finished on the West Coast and just set up a place for the Grateful Dead to play all the time.
One flew over the cuckoo's nest, man.
That's true.
Really makes you understand like how crazy what the time was.
Oh.
I mean, and most of it gets attributed to the 60s, but honestly, the 70s are where like it's turbo maniacal.
Yeah, we're still in the 60s now, but yeah, the 70s is when my take is that the 60s the 70s it gets seedy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
There's a lot. Like, you have like all the Nam guys coming. One, Vietnam is like they're coming back. You have the summer of '68, where just like everything falls apart.
Assassinated. Yeah.
And everyone's disillusioned. You've got this like divide in the country. Nixon.
Yeah.
And then heroin.
Mm-hmm.
And smog. Like,
yeah.
But if you were doing well in the 70s, I've said it before, pre-AIDS, good music, good cars, good coke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty nice.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it. Really, a nice window there.
Let's see if I wonder if I have
a psalm.
Yeah. I wonder if I had a story. Oh man. Oh yeah. Okay, I'll tell that story later. Okay, so, so they're living this like very like extended family life. A lot of people just live at Millbrook. There's 64 fucking rooms, but people are coming in and out and seeking and like,
And where is Millbrook here?
Millbrook, New York. Is it Dutchess County?
Sure.
And a lot of like the jet set type, high society type coming in, and then they're also having parties. So, I think it's just July of 1964 now. They're having their 4th of July party, and a descendant of royalty, one fashion model, Nina von Schellbrug, shows up to the 4th of July party. Now, she's a very tall, slender, regal-looking blonde woman, and Tim is real taken to her.
Hey, he's the cutest boy at the party.
He is the cutest boy. And they have some flirting or what happened.
Oh, no.
They would eventually take LSD together.
Oh, no.
And 3 days later, they decide to get married.
Oh.
They have their wedding.
What happened to Mary?
He got rid of her. That didn't last.
He did hit her.
Yeah.
That's true.
He did hit her. The wedding was December 12th, 1964, and that was like a huge hoo of the beautiful crowd.
Even the crowd was asking.
The punch was laced with LSD, so everyone was tripping. It was 150 guests high on LSD, grass, and or speed.
All trying to find where's Waldo.
Is it? Am I? I'm Waldo.
We're all Waldo.
Shit.
And we have to find ourselves.
Yeah, we're Aldo.
Honestly, that sounds like an awful time, but maybe it was great.
It was a party. Charles Mingus and Maynard Ferguson.
Okay, well, that sounds cool.
They jammed with Miles Davis's sidemen. Guests lined up to present the newlyweds with gifts of hash, grass, mushrooms, and snuff boxes filled with LSD and cocaine. The wedding cake was designed by Richard Alpert. It had the Hindu deities Shiva and Shakti fucking on top of it.
Wow.
They would go on.
Maybe it was a great time.
They would go on an extended honeymoon to India, and just after a while, like the LSD's wearing off.
Yeah, I bet it is.
And it's kind of like the honeymoon was over during the honeymoon.
Yeah.
He would. While he was away, the rumblings that Millbrook was kind of falling apart, because like I think even Richard Alpert might have taken a sabbatical. Like, there's the chief wasn't in the teepee. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they're not helping people as much anymore. Who
I got it. Yeah.
So,
oh man,
like no one's cleaning anything.
Oh, weird.
It's like
man,
dishes
shit out the toilet.
The dishes are piling up. While Tim was in India, Michael Hollingshead was there, and he would be mailing stuff to to the American Express Bureau there with just tons of LSD for them to do while they're in India, and he would tell Tim like what's going on there while he's gone. Here's one story. Wearing ski masks and carrying musical instruments, they had all attended Salvador Dali's birthday party at the St. Regis Hotel in Manhattan. Someone gave Dali a pet iguana as a gift. Afterward, Dali took everyone to the Stork Club for a late dinner. He left the iguana on the table as a tip. Wearing a raccoon and a tam o'shanter, Hollingshead drove to the city to pick up a Tibetan monkey, which they had tried to donate to the Baltimore Zoo, only to have the animal rejected.
Oh, God.
So then the monkey just stayed at Millbrook.
No. I don't think these are the best and brightest.
Yeah, honestly, Matt, they might have needed to leave Mexico.
See, that's what I'm saying.
And it just became that.
I think you're right.
Okay.
They might need to get out of there.
Yeah.
And it seemed that at Millbrook, the answer to everything just became drugs.
Yes.
The goal was, let's see how high somebody can get.
Right.
Oh, no.
The goal was to see how high a human being could get without exploding into discrete particles of pure energy.
Jesus Christ.
One day,
I do not want to be the fucking patsy on that one.
No. I
want to get the high where you lift the...
I mean, they're giving LSD to the kids and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
One day, in order to cure Richard Alpert's cold, somebody injected him with DMT while he was sleeping.
Jesus! The cold?
Yeah.
And he thinks he's dying?
For half an hour, Alpert sat bolt upright without moving. Arnie then fed him 800 micrograms of LSD with a spoon. At full volume for an hour, 3 separate record players blasted Beethoven, Coltrane, and Stockhausen. When the treatment ended, Alpert's cold was gone.
Yeah.
And as was his mind. As was his able, rational mind.
It's like if the 12 Stooges were your doctors.
Yeah.
You know,
God damn it. That is fucking
this is the patients taking over the asylum.
Yeah.
It's
the SPK.
Yeah.
people were high all hours of the day and night. Charlie Mingus was there. He heard the tap in the sink going, followed by some banging noises. So he took out his bass and began playing counterpoint to the faucet. Tripping in the woods one day, Charles Lloyd played the flute accompanied by Steve Swallow, who managed to say, "It's so beautiful, it's also beautiful." For 3 weeks, Alpert and 5 others locked themselves in the meditation house and took 400 micrograms of LSD every 4 hours.
Oh, fuck.
A normal dose is like 100 mics, and they're taking 424 hours.
I mean, they're pros after all.
2,400 micrograms of LSD a day was unheard of. Alpert soon discovered that the human body developed a tolerance to LSD. There was no way of getting higher beyond a certain point. Quote,
Really?
quote, "We finally were just drinking it out of the bottle."
Wow.
This Tony Hawk of ass.
Dude, that's wild.
Because it didn't seem to matter anymore. We would just stay at a plateau. We were very high. What happened in those 3 weeks in that house, no one would ever believe, including us.
Dude.
And that's...
Imagine reaching that plateau. where you go,
This is when he jumped out of a window and broke his leg.
Yeah, because he's like, there's nothing else to do right now.
I'm not even having that many breakthroughs. You know what?
The ground is up here.
Yeah. I'm going to break through. That's fucking nuts.
Maybe if I jump out the window, I can leave here.
God, man. So...
Jesus Christ. I can't believe that Harvard
Would finance such terrible...
No, would fire these men. Is scrupulous.
Oh, yeah.
Scrupulous
You know, they
types.
keep fucking people like Conan O'Brien under there.
So then he divorces Nina von Schellenberg.
Yeah.
they are everyone's just taking. He's back at Millbrook. Everyone's just taking drugs. Then they have one day this in '65. A quote. A woman wearing tight jeans bound by a silver chain, a boy's shirt tied above her navel, revealing a strip of creamy and smooth belly. 30-year-old Rosemary Woodruff, a dark-haired former model, actress, and stewardess, arrived at Millbrook with some friends on May 1st. She ran into Tim at Millbrook, and they were pretty smitten with each other. Then about a couple of weeks later, they had another seminar, and she showed up to that. And they took some LSD, and they went over to the bowling alley house where they fucking smashed. And he came out the next morning, and he painted 2 interlocking triangles on the house to symbolize that we fuck, dude. 2 triangles means fucking.
Is that what it means?
I guess.
Well, it's not really bowling lingo, but yeah, sure.
Sure.
So, goddamn. So now they're together, Rosemary Woodruff and Tim Leary, and more so than any of his other previous lovers, she was very much into, like, I will be the mother to Jack and Susan. And before that, like, Richard was pretty much raising those kids.
No.
He was like a surrogate father to them because Tim was always out and about on
Fucking around.
Yeah.
But she's down.
She's down, yeah. But like it was no longer the sanctuary for exploration and research anymore. It just became like a hippie commune drug house.
Like the ultimate drug house.
Yeah, the ultimate drug house. And then so by 65, the house was cleaned up, all the haggard people were kicked out. But like now they had caught the attention of the police. And so there was like police surveillance.
For sure.
Or like they'd set up.
Oh, the FBI probably loved it.
Yeah. Like,
forget it.
you know, their unmarked cars would drive around onto the property. Like people would get like stopped coming and going. And so Shellebrew moves in. She helps edit his manuscript for his 1966 book, Psychedelic Prayers and Other Meditations, which he also did with Ralph Metzner and Michael Horowitz. And now, you know, there's a lot of heat on the house. He's trying to focus on the stuff. So he also gets a $10,000 advance for his autobiography.
Oh.
And so they're like, let's get
Flashback.
a different one. So let's get out of New York. Let's get out of the winter for New York, and let's go to Mexico. So they
That's okay.
They go to Mexico. Like they bury all like the psychedelic drug, like all like the paraphernalia. They bury it on the property to like so nothing happens while they're gone. If it gets searched, nothing happens. They have some grass with them. They smoke weed all the way down with Jack, Susan too, the kids too.
Damn.
They dump most of it. And so
Kids are chiefing the dope into the dirt.
what?
The kids are chiefing the dope into the dirt. They're like, oh, we gotta smoke all this shit. Like, get rid of all the drugs.
Oh, they're just smoking all the way down. They're just
On the way
smoking all
down
the way
to
to
Mexico.
Mexico.
Oh, I think you meant like getting rid of the fucking...
No.
They were
They're
hotboxing the fucking...
and then
The
Graves.
drug grave.
so
You gotta finish it. You don't get dinner.
they drive down. They get into Mexico, and they get into Mexico, and like when they get there, one of those same cops who kicked him out before. He says, "Hey, Senor Leary, you can't be in Mexico." And it's like, "What? We just fucking got here." And like, "No, you gotta.
I remember you
You
fucked
don't
up.
have the right papers or whatever, so you gotta go back." But they still had some weed on them, and they're going back into the U.S. through customs.
Oh.
And they thought they had gotten rid of all of it, but Susan had some in her panties.
The child.
The child.
And they
The
searched,
child.
searched the panties.
They were at the border crossing.
I blame the border
And
guards
they went
for searching
into the child's panties.
So they think that their house was tapped and that the government set up.
It
set
probably
this
was.
up
Probably was.
to bust them.
Yeah.
And that's why they were sent back to go to catch them with the weed. There was basically like they had an eighth of weed. They strip searched the family.
Jesus.
I mean, they had a female steward do.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Great. No, that's not.
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not traumatizing.
So he's arrested. They're all arrested. They spend the night in jail. I don't think this is the time. This might have been the time that Jack was just stripped naked and started jacking off in his cell.
The child?
Yeah. Well,
Why was he doing
now
that?
he's like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
Well, that probably felt good.
He
Tim
learned.
just laughed.
What do you mean, why? What do you,
What do you mean why?
what,
I didn't ask why.
You said, why was he doing that? You
No,
said,
I didn't.
No, you did.
yeah.
So he. God, it's so fucked up.
Is it fucked up?
Yeah.
Is it fucked up?
Like I said, so they
Talk what the fucked
so
up.
that guy CSI sends him back. They get arrested.
An eighth is
For an
gross.
for an eighth of
Gross.
weed.
No, it still happens today.
Rosemary, Jack, Tim, and Susan are all arrested. They were indicted on 3 federal charges: smuggling marijuana, transporting smuggled marijuana, and failure to pay the federal marijuana tax.
How is there?
The tax if it's illegal?
Yeah, so that was the entrapment. That was a very big thing at the time. That was how they entrapped people. Like, oh, you have to get a tax if you want to have it. But when you would show up to buy the stamp, they would arrested.
Yeah.
And,
Gotcha.
And so this would be
That's a
part
like
of
terrorist.
his defense. That one, this is a religious sacrament for me, and like he flew in like swamis and shit at his trial, but like he's ordained from the Hindu, like he was baptized in the Ganges River, and this is part of his religion. They asked Rosemary they asked Susan what the religion was. She had no idea, and they're like, okay, yeah, religion. So he was found guilty for unlawful transport of marijuana, sentenced him to 20 years in prison and a $20,000 fine.
Damn.
For failure to pay the tax on marijuana, he was given 10 years and a $10,000 fine. Susan was sentenced to a reformatory for an indeterminate sentence.
Jesus.
Land
Now-
of the free.
Tim's not about this. He was like, I'm not just going to lay over. I'm not going to bend over and take this. He became an expert in marijuana law. And he had trouble finding a lawyer, but eventually he did. And he, part of his argument was like, the federal marijuana tax is a violation of the Fifth Amendment against self-incrimination.
Yes.
It's unconstitutional.
No, that's very good. Yeah.
God, it's so fucked up. And so then he posts bail. He goes back to Millbrook. In April, again, Millbrook under surveillance.
Mhm.
It's a known entity.
Yes.
Even though it's much more calmed down than it was at the height of this. On April 16th, a 23-year-old Harvard dropout turned Tibetan monk shows up to Millbrook to give Tim a warning. He's got a shaved blonde head and long robes, and he's blind in one eye. And he told Tim there was so much negative energy surrounding Millbrook and your notoriety. He urged him to give up the fight against the authorities, and to leave, and to like stop your advocation as a leader in LSD. He said that when 2 dogs fight over a bone and one dog drops the bone, the other one drops the bone too. So he was basically saying like your constant like butting heads with the establishment is the cause for the establishment butting heads with you. Like whether or not he was right about that, it's an interesting maxim to consider.
Sure.
Within a year of that meeting, that monk, whose real name was Robert Thurman, would marry Nina von Schellenbrugge, and they would have 4 kids.
No, someone picked up the bone, I guess.
One of them is Uma Thurman.
Huh.
Whoa! Wow.
That warning fell on deaf ears. That very night, they would have a big bonfire, and they would watch some movies and smoke DMT. At around 1 a.m, the big house would be raided by a posse of armed deputies led by Sheriff Larry Quinlan and the assistant attorney of Dutchess County, a former FBI agent named G. Gordon Liddy.
No way.
He probably had a great time. He probably
Most had the time of his life.
Yeah, he was searching for that high the rest of his life.
Let's see. Oh gosh.
Quick break, real
Sure, yeah.
All right,
G. Gordon Liddy.
be right back. And we're back.
Acid punch.
Yeah, that tastes good.
Feels
Straight from the Millbrook.
It's 100% lysergic. Is that what the word is? I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
Nice, John.
Thanks.
Stay out of Mexico.
Keep my patch clean.
So
Governor of Cabo.
they get raided at Millbrook by G. Gordon Liddy.
God damn it.
That is so crazy.
That is.
Quote, this is from G. Gordon. Rumors were rampant at the intersection of Main and Market Street, Poughkeepsie's Rialto. Local boys and girls had been seen entering and leaving the estate. Fleeting glimpses were reported of persons strolling the grounds in the nude. To fears of drug-induced dementia were added pot-induced pregnancy.
None of these are actually things worth.
Pot-induced pregnancy.
The word was that at Leary's lair, the panties were dropping as fast as the acid.
Yeah.
Which for government folks means like people are fucking.
Mm-hmm.
We can't.
That's 100% just a J. Edgar Hoover,
Yeah.
like, true fucking FBI guy. Because it's the FBI with Liddy.
Yeah. No, he was a former FBI agent. Right now he was the district attorney for the county.
Oh, fuck.
What year is this?
1964.
So yeah.
Oh, yeah, so he's on the come up, yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely
But
trying.
he was like the FBI guy, whereas Hunt was the CIA guy.
Mm-hmm.
So they bust in. They're coming down off DMT.
It's a good fucking welcoming committee.
It's like fucking 12 guys in like, yellow hunting vests. They're armed to the gills.
Not good, guys.
She's like in a fucking nightie that her grandma gave her. Tim's wearing basically a t-shirt. It's like G. Gordon Liddy looks up the stairs like, I had quite a view of Tim Leary on his way down. I kept yelling, pants! Pants!
Dude, that's so great.
The district attorney wants pants on this man.
You ever heard of this, G. Gordon Liddy? These are called balls, you prick.
Liddy was downstairs with Sheriff Quinlan, and they were gathering all the members of the household. The Ferguson family and their lovely black babysitter, Susie Blue, who was terrified, and Maria Manns and her companion, and Michael Bowen and his Great Dane, and some other terrified people. Then they just started, raiding everything, like turning stuff over, trying to grab everything. They really didn't find anything other than
They wouldn't understand what they did find.
They said they seized some LSD and marijuana, but it was actually Rosemary's dead fuchsia plant and some peat moss.
Yeah, no, these are guys who have never done any drugs ever.
Yeah.
In order to get their job.
This is my aunt who cleaned my cousin's bong without understanding it wasn't a vase. That's exactly what this is.
Yeah.
Again, eventually the case would be thrown out by a grand jury, and the case never would go to trial.
Right, but they did enough to.
Yeah.
They couldn't even get the most Schedule 1, like,
No, but that wasn't the point. The point was to disrupt what they were doing.
but they could have got them even on their own rules, and they fucked it up because they're so dumb.
Certainly, absolutely. But at the very least, they got to frighten these people that they didn't understand.
Yeah, it's harassment
and
stuff.
scare them,
Knock it off.
and then get them to move out. Which is what I assume.
So then 66, he does his very famous Playboy interview.
Mm-hmm.
And this really kind of like makes him even more famous than he already was.
And Playboy is one of just the magazine.
It's the magazine at the time, right?
Mm-hmm. Which is wild in a way.
That was a good magazine, man.
Yeah.
But also just it was like,
And so the article, like, it gives a background on LSD and mushrooms and his history is at Harvard, how he came to get Millbrook, his run-ins with the law, basically everything I just told you.
full profile, Playboy magazine.
Honestly, you could read the profile. You get a good...
Don't tell him that, Aaron.
Honestly, it's not that good.
You got to get on eBay, probably.
Yeah. The tits are so old.
Oh,
And fantastic.
beautiful.
So he would say some really weird shit in this interview. They would ask some weird questions. But he would explain like how long a dose lasts, what's an average dose, how many have you taken? He said up until this point, I've done 311 LSD sessions. And he would say things like, LSD is against the law, and I would certainly not advise anyone to violate the law. I will say this, however, throughout human history, men who have wanted to expand their consciousness to find deeper meaning inside themselves have been able to do it if they were willing to commit the time and energy to do so. In other times and countries, men would walk barefooted 2,000 miles to find spiritual teachers who would turn them on to Buddha, Muhammad, Ramakrishna, etc. He would explain that's an odorless, tasteless liquid that you can take a variety of ways. And he would say, with LSD, it's as though you have a microscope up to your eyes in which you see jewel-like radiant details of anything your eyes fall on. You're seeing everything for the first time. Not static, symbolic perception of learned things, but patterns of light bouncing off the objects around you and hurtling at the speed of light into the mosaic of rods and cones in the retina of your eye. Everything seems alive. Everything is alive, beaming diamond-bright light waves into your retina. And then they get into like, oh, what other senses? And he's like, you're at the same, every one of your organs is pulsating and having orgasms in rhythm with it. And then he says, touch becomes electric as well as erotic. I remember a moment during one session in which my wife leaned over and lightly touched the palm of my hand with her finger. Immediately, 100,000 end cells in my hand exploded in soft orgasm. Ecstatic energies pulsated up my arms and rocketed into my brain. Getting on to more stuff, he says, I am simply saying that sex under LSD becomes miraculously enhanced and intensified. I don't mean that it simply generates genital energy. It doesn't automatically produce a longer erection. Rather, it increases your sensitivity 1,000%. Let me put it this way. Compared with sex under LSD, the way you've been making love, no matter how ecstatic the pleasure you think you get from it, is like making love to a department store window dummy. In sensory and cellular communion on LSD, you may spend half an hour making love with eyeballs, another half hour making love with breath. As you spin through 1,000 sensory and cellular organic changes, she does too. Ordinarily, sexual communication involves one's own chemicals, pressure, and interactions of a very localized nature, in what the psychologists call the erogenous zones. A vulgar, dirty concept. I think when you're making love under LSD, it's though every cell in your body, and you have trillions, is making love with every cell in her body. How often have you made love under the influence of LSD, Dr. Leary? Every time I've taken it. In fact, that is what the LSD experience is all about. Merging, yielding, flowing, union, communion. It's all lovemaking. You make love with candlelight. The sound waves from a record player, with a bowl of fruit on the table, with the trees, you're in pulsating harmony with all of the energy around you.
God damn.
Including that of a woman? The 3 inevitable goals of the LSD session are to discover and make love with God, to discover and make love with yourself, and to discover and make love with a woman. You can't make it with yourself unless you've made it with timeless energy process around you. You can't make it with a woman until you've made it with yourself.
You can't make it with God unless you've made it.
One of the great purposes of an LSD session is sexual union. And then they ask him about, can you describe the sensation of an orgasm under LSD? One of the most reckless only the most reckless poet would attempt to describe that. I have to say to you, what does one say to a little child? The little child says, Daddy, what is sex like? And you try and describe it, and the little child says, well, is it fun like the circus? And you say, well, not exactly like that. Is it fun like chocolate ice cream? Well, it's like that, but much, much more than that. Is it fun like the roller coaster? And you say, well, that's part of it, but it's even more than that. And sure, I can't tell you what it's like because it's not like anything that's ever happened to you. And there aren't adequate words to describe it. You won't know what it's like till you try it yourself, and then I won't need to tell you. And then he says,
we can just nod at each other.
in a carefully prepared loving LSD session, a woman will inevitably have several hundred orgasms. Several hundred? Yes, several hundred. What about a man? This preoccupation with the number of orgasms is a hang-up.
I mean, I have 2.
Well, no, but they're big. They're like
2 are good.
you can fit like 100 in them.
Maybe 1.
And then he would
It's like a
then he would go on to say that you can have thousands, and then he would say it's a potential cure for homosexuality.
Oh Christ!
He said that I gave it to one person, and he discovered not only that he was genitally a man, but genetically as well. Whatever that means.
You wouldn't fuck me in the ass.
Makes sense to me, Aaron. I'm also genetically as well as genetic.
A man. And not gay.
No.
It's a very interesting interview.
I had all this acid. Now I love pussy.
According to some reports, LSD can trigger acting out of latent homosexual impulses in ostensibly heterosexual men and women. Is there any truth to that, in your opinion, Doctor? On the contrary, the fact is that LSD is a specific cure for homosexuality. It's well known that most sexual perversions are the result of not biological binds, but of freaky, dislocating childhood experiences of one kind or another. Consequently, it's not surprising that we've had many cases of long-term homosexuals who under LSD discover they're not only genitally, but genetically male, that they are basically attracted to females. The most famous and public of such cases is that of Allen Ginsberg, who had openly
totally straight
that the first time he turned on to women was during an LSD session several years ago.
But completely ignoring the whole lead up to that where he goes, you'll be turned on by everything when you take this.
For the same reasons, the LSD is also a powerful panacea for impotence and frigidity. So it basically becomes this big, advertisement for LSD, and that's partially because of, he would go on to say, like, everyone had this big hang up of what I said on the Playboy interview, but, like, if I was doing popular mechanics, I would have said that it'll make you a better fucking motorcycle mechanic. If it was baseball, I'd say raise your batting average.
Right.
It's just the medium that I was in.
And I understand that at the time, the belief in some places was that homosexuality was perversion. And he's trying. But the thing is
his best friend was gay.
He's selling out gay people in order to upsell LSD.
Yes,
and that's
it's
despicable. So,
also, it seems like he knows better.
Yeah, and also it's not right. Like he's lying about it.
Yes. So, because of his expertise and his approach to experiments, he was invited to testify before a United States Senate subcommittee investigating whether or not LSD was dangerous and should be outlawed. His testimony was pretty milquetoast. He kind of he started to push back, and then he said, "Yes, it's a very valuable tool. It should be regulated." It was seen as a bit of a sellout in this
The Playboy interview says that too.
Yeah, the interview was even cited in the questioning done by Ted Kennedy towards him. Rosemary was like still in jail for 25 days, refusing to narc on him.
Jesus Christ.
Fucking A.
Yeah, she was like, she's ride or die through this whole thing. So he does his kind of lackluster Senate hearing testimony, and then he needs to make money. He's not teaching anymore. His books, like he's not writing as much. So he goes on tours.
Mm-hmm.
He gets offered lecture tours. He gets an agent to go speak at colleges and places around the country. He had met with the brilliant Marshall McLuhan of The Medium is the Message, which is in his book, The Medium is the Massage, and then also Gutenberg Galaxy. Marshall McLuhan's just like a brilliant media theorist, linguist, etc. He told Leary that the key to your work is advertising. You're promoting a product, the new and improved accelerated brain. You must use the most current tactics for arousing consumer interest. Wave assuringly, radiate courage, never complain or appear angry. It's okay if you come off as flamboyant and eccentric. You're a professor after all. But a confident attitude is the best advertisement. You must be known for your smile. And if you look up pictures of Tim Leary smiling, he looks like a fucking maniac. He's got a great smile, but it is, as one of his former lover calls it, the image of the ego eating the personality.
Oh.
Do you remember what I was telling you about that game, Disco Elysium?
Yeah.
The picture of that guy, when you finally see his face, is that picture.
Yeah. He's... it is very... It's not Joker-like.
But there's a phoniness to it.
Yeah, I mean, he's still very charismatic and likable when you hear him talk.
Well, a genuine smile can still be characterized by others as something else.
Yeah, especially if you know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
A look to the great mass is not...
He is...
What it necessarily
He
is.
loves attention. He loves attention. He loves fucking. He is, and for all the LSD and mushrooms he took, he's still a bit of an egomaniac.
Absolutely.
Not a good father.
No.
But a salesman, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, that Playboy interview is that. The testimony in front of the committee is that. He's selling...
Yeah, the testimony in the committee, he kind of sells out the movement a little bit.
He sells out the movement in order to advance the drug.
Maybe.
Okay.
I can read some excerpts from it. He is saying that it's a great and powerful thing, but it should be regulated. It's not for everybody. Like
That is also the same thing you could say, though, about something like sugar. If sugar was discovered tomorrow, you could be like, oh, it's great and it has this stuff.
Which they did. They sold sugar as a diet aid.
But you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not the most ridiculous thing to say just about something like LSD.
No, you're right. No, you're right.
No, in hindsight,
to regulate any drug.
that hearing is the most sensible he is,
Yeah.
but the people in his world saw him as cowering in front of the might of the Senate.
Well,
Right.
because they had also seen him selling all of these classes and like all of these things where he's going
and wanting to really
let go,
democratize
do it,
and
do whatever.
And so his response to this is where he does kind of try to swing the pendulum the other way and do the bottom-up approach of like, everyone should be taking this.
Right.
Society is flawed. We need to change it. So in 1967, at the Human Be-In, it's a San Francisco hippie rally that protested a California law outlawing the use of LSD, he unveiled to this audience the famous catchphrase, turn on, tune in, and drop out.
Yeah.
And this would be parroted everywhere.
Yeah.
Because he got this from Marshall McLuhan. Like, you need a
Oh my God. Oh, he was like teaching him branding.
Yeah, exactly. Well, because Marshall McLuhan had studied all of this advertising stuff and figured out all of the ins and outs.
Oh my
of
God.
it. His name is Marshall McLuhan. I mean,
soft drink maker Squirt urged the American public to turn on to flavor.
here's the thing. Squirt is mostly pee.
Yeah.
Turn on to flavor, tune into sparkle, and drop out of the cola rut. Billy Graham.
Fuck off.
Billy Graham announced the theme of his upcoming European crusade would be turn on Christ, tune into the Bible, and drop out of sin.
Wow.
Mad Magazine, 1968,
Well, of course, man.
ran a psychedelic cover.
Wait,
with
these are all after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought
in response.
I thought you
to
were
how
saying-
popular this was.
I thought you were saying that he was jumping
no,
up.
he
Okay.
fucking
He started it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Tune in, turn on, drop dead.
That was Mad Magazine.
Yeah,
you know.
the novelist Tom Robbins of Even Cowgirls Get the Blues.
Yes, Tom Robbins.
He was driving down a long street on the waterfront in Seattle where he saw a billboard outside a seafood restaurant which said, turn on, tune in, and drop out with our seafood buffet.
Jesus.
Nice. I mean, just turn into the parking lot. The second is so much better. Christ.
And so I think this turning point of where he goes full-on counterculture might be a good place to end part 1 and drop out.
All right, but you got to tune back in for
Turn
part.
on your iPhone.
Yeah.
Tune in
Yeah.
to this
And
podcast.
jack off. Wait, no. So was it? Oh,
Jack off.
jack off. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the president commanded. We're gonna wall jack off here.
Excuse me. Yeah.
What's that? Instead of a fireside chat, we're all gonna have a
Drop a couple of tabs, maybe 300-400 mics.
tube side jack off.
Only Teddy now.
Aaron, that's wonderful.
Wonderful. I'm glad you
I do like hearing, the sweet innocent side of this totally debauched, complete psychopath. Before we see him go headlong into
the counterculture.
what could only be described as a life of sin.
Well, I mean, there's so much I've heard where I thought he was kind of on this level of maybe okay, and now I am, John the Cop is.
You got a hard on.
John the
this.
Cop is 100. This guy, I'm ready to fucking hate Timothy Leary,
Yeah,
and I can't wait for part 2.
that's exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting. Matt's got a hard on for this Irish.
This guy
prick.
loves cops, hates cultural revolutionaries.
Well, Aaron, that was excellent.
I'm glad you enjoyed
Very
it.
Thank you.
exciting.
Fantastic.
Folks, we'll be back next week with part 2 of the famous Dr. Timothy Leary. And
Pope of dope.
Pope of Dope. Aaron, very proud of you. I love you.
Thank you. You're
I was just proud of you before this, but I'm
Thank
still
you.
proud of you.
I like both
Yeah.
types.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't put any time limit on it.
Okay,
I
well,
just
fine.
said I was
Whatever,
proud.
John. Yeah, it's fine.
Listen, as long as we stay out of Mexico. Stay off this guy's fucking patch. What the fuck is going on
You
here?
and me will go.
Yeah, we're going to go and do dirty stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Matt, you
He
will...
already did.
Matt's
No,
going to be
he-
a decomposing body.
Oh, come on.
Well,
I
eventually
can play
you
a
will.
composing body.
Matt, I love you
I
too.
love you too.
Good night, everybody. I'm going to say good night. I love you. My name is John Fahey.
I'm Aaron Pita.
Matt Brousseau.
Good night, everybody. We love you.
Good night.